Are you the one? There are almost 8 billion people in the world, but are you the one that needs hope? In this very moment, there are 332 million people in the US, but are you the one that feels alone? Good news is, you're not alone. While 80,000 thoughts will bombard you today and can feel chaotic, just one thought can potentially bring you peace and free you. Join us today, together with our guests, as we sift through the challenges, pains, questions, and victories in life. In sharing our stories, are you the one that will be inspired to take the next step toward fully living the purposeful and abundant life God created for you? Welcome to Are You the One?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Are You the One? Switching up the hosting jobs today. We're co-hosting, so each of us, take turns introducing. But we're super excited that you're here today, and we're diving into a really exciting topic, and I think a really prevalent one, given the time of year, and that is loneliness.
Yeah. Well, Tyler, thank you for having me as your co-host.
Anytime, Trish.
And my name is Trish. And yeah, we're really happy that you're joining us on this time of year where loneliness is a big issue for a lot of people. Christmas, the holidays have all kinds of expectations, and the extreme of loneliness is almost magnified during this season. And so for me, I've watched a number of people go through there's a cycle for a lot of the people that I'm with of expectation of loneliness. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah. So it's already a preset in their minds that they're going to be lonely come this season. And then decisions that are made come from that preconception that they're going to be lonely. So they'll make plans with the half of their self thinking they're going to fall apart. And so that's one very real thing that I have seen, that there is, for a certain percentage of people, there is the expectation of loneliness during the holidays because they've had bad experiences or they've been lonely before, and so they're going to be lonely again. So I think for some of it, it's like a great mind shift that you have to do well before the actual holiday, that you have to say, this year, it's going to be different. Like, God has not designed me to be lonely. We're never supposed to be lonely, right? We're not. Like, at our quote-unquote most alone, we're with Him, right? So He is always with us. He'll never leave us. He'll never forsake us. But He also wants us in community. And so, and especially during holiday events, I think it is even more important that we share that. It doesn't have to necessarily be with blood relatives, but with whomever you're calling family in this season, that loneliness is something that, as we say in recovery, somebody that's spent years doing Celebrate Recovery, we call loneliness a choice.
Wow.
So you respond to that,
Yeah.
Loneliness being a choice. Let me hear what you think about that.
Yeah, that's a lot to unpack. But I think it's so very well said. I think going back to your first point about extremes, I think this is a season of extremes. There's extreme happiness, there's extreme sadness, depression, obviously. There's plenty of studies that show that it's at its highest this time of year. But it's also a time of extreme happiness. And I think to a large extent, I think I would agree with you. And I think that there are so many ways to combat that feeling of loneliness. And again, what you said is perfect in preparation. I think preparation is such a key to success, to try and combat those feelings of loneliness, because even I can have a sense of loneliness, and I have an amazing family, and I'm really blessed to have so many of them so close to me. But I can think about the people that aren't here, and I can feel lonely. I can think about my brother not being in town, and being away from him when I've spent so many of my holidays with him, and I can get really sad and lonely. You can think about the ones that have passed away. I know the first few years after that is really difficult. The few years after I lost my grandma, that was really tough. So I think it's really about your mindset and what you're focusing on, because it is so easy to feel alone and to get into that trap of feeling like there is nobody out there for you. We talked about it a couple weeks ago when we talked about, suicide and how easy it is to slip into feeling like you were lonely. And in those moments where those feelings are so extreme and kind of overtaking you, your mind will only tell you certain things, and they will tell you this person that does care about you doesn't want to hear from you right now. They're probably busy. They're with their family. This and
You're
that.
going to be a burden on them.
Exactly.
You're going to bring their holiday down if you call them. I mean, I can tell you all of the lies of the enemy. Yeah.
There are just so many. I mean, so many of us really do have so many people, and I'm very blessed. I have so many people in my corner, and there are still many times where I'll get into that dark place and be like, yeah, like I have people that say that, but is that really like is it real, or are they just being nice? So again, I think it is about preparation and mentality. I said this a couple weeks ago, like if you think you're going to burden someone with a phone call, burden them anyways. Like you have to do it, and I promise you're going to feel better on the other end when you do. I think that's my biggest piece of advice. If you're feeling lonely, like look through your phone. Who can you text? Who can you call? And push through that feeling that you're going to be a burden to them. Because think about it on the other end. Like if any of my friends texted me and they're like, I'm really lonely this time of year, or I don't have anywhere to go on Christmas, I don't have anywhere to go on Thanksgiving, I'd be like, come over. And I wouldn't think twice about it. And I think most of us would feel that way. But when it's reversed and we feel like we're asking or we're putting ourselves out there.
I'm a loser. Yeah. I'm ashamed of the fact that I don't have somewhere to go.
They don't want me there.
Right.
I'm not blood related. And I think there are so many ways to do it. And I also think there are so many great resources that, local cities and local businesses have, that even if you're in a situation where you're new to a place or you truly are like, there's no one local here, like there's no one physically near me that I can go to, there are resources out there. Go to your local city's websites and look up events and things like that. Almost every city does something for people who don't have places to go. I know like our work put together like a Thanksgiving event where we booked out a couple tables at a local restaurant that happened to be open, and we opened it up to the entire team. Hey, if you have nowhere else that you want to go on Thanksgiving,
what a great idea! I love that.
And I think that's more common than you think.
Great.
There's a lot of people this time of year that are feeling lonely, and you are not alone in feeling that way. So build a community out of that, and find ways to do that. And there are a lot of resources already out there for it. So I think it's so much easier said than done, though. And I'm not trying to make it seem like it is easy, because it is not at all. And I failed many times in that battle with loneliness. But to have that battle, you have to put yourself out there, and that's really hard to do. But you have to take that action even if you don't want to, because there are opportunities out there, and especially this time of year. Again, I said it a couple weeks ago. Do what you have to do to not physically be alone. Go out, even if you're in public and you go to a movie by yourself. At least you're in public and there's people around you. But if you're not putting yourself out there and getting outside, that feeling is so much easier to encapsulate you.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I kind of want to flip the thing that we're thinking about loneliness. And that is, if you're lonely and you don't want to burden somebody else, then how about thinking about the other person who might be lonely, and you set up the event. You be the event. You be the one that calls somebody that you know is probably by themselves or possibly by themselves, and you say, hey, I'm going to host a few people over here for Christmas Eve or something like that. Come join us. We're just going to do a potluck or whatever it is, just to make you be the one that creates the event. Yeah. That you don't even need to have, it's great if you have, goodness, I hadn't even heard of that. That's so awesome, that Thanksgiving event. I love that. But if you don't want to be the one showing up to it because you're lonely, then create the event yourself. Be the one who's the answer. You know, one of the things that I know that God has done in my life was that when I was a kid, then things were really chaotic in our home, you know, alcohol and abuse and all that. And so you never knew, like my life in the house was very unpredictable, at times, you know, very unsafe. And so I couldn't control anything around me as a kid or change that. But what God put inside of me was a desire to help others. And that, even as a kid, doing those things made my focus be on others and what they needed and helping them. And it actually like took the focus off of what I didn't have and what was going on and put my focus on others. And then I was able to like have a sense of purpose. So even your loneliness, by the way, can become a sense of purpose from God. And he can use that like to help that other person who is probably lonely. I mean, and we were at a breakfast last Sunday, a group of us, like, you know, 6 of my friends, we went out to breakfast after church, and there was a woman at a table pretty close to ours, and I just kind of kept my eye like every once in a while, and I could see her just kind of like doing a little side glance, and then at the end of lunch, I got up and I went over to her to talk to her, and she said, "That's something I really miss, having friends." And so we talked for a little bit, and I invited her, you know, to come join us next week, etc. So what I'm saying is, like, God will put people in your life that you can reach out to. If you don't think there are people in your life at your work that are lonely, like you're mistaken.
Look closer.
Yeah, exactly. Look close. Good line. Look closer. Ask God to give you the eyes, the heart to see the people who are lonely.
Yeah. I mean, I'll even take it a step further and I'll make it kind of in our situation and where we are. Again, we're really blessed. We have really big Christmases and Thanksgivings with our family. If you're in a situation where you are blessed enough to have that, keep the door open for other people to come. That's how we do it every year. It's always almost like an inside joke with our family. It's like, who's Grandma Trish going to bring this year? I don't know. But we love that because it's an open door thing. I open my door to all of my roommates and to friends if I know that there are people in my life. And I think we all know those people who, you know, might not have friends or family local or whatever it may be. Reach out to them, because a lot of the times they're going to be too afraid to reach out themselves to do that. And, you know, you might find yourself in a situation in a different year where your circumstances have changed and maybe you're in a new area and you want to have that person that reaches out to you. So if you have a place to go, open it up to others if you can and you're able to. And I know it goes a really long way, because there are people who will be too scared. And it's a scary thing to put yourself out there. It's a lot easier coming from the place of, I have a place to go. Let me invite others and open that door for them. And so I think that that's super important too. Like we're all in this thing together, you know, in life. And there are going to be days where, you know, I'm on a high and things are great, and there are going to be days when I'm on a low. And for other people, their days are going to be different. So we're here to help each other out in any way we can. And I think this time of year, more than any, you know, any way that we can help others and those others will help other people. I think it's really, it's important. And it's, I mean, the reason for the whole season to begin with.
Yes.
So
yes.
I think it's important.
And we as believers, we're called to be salt and light in this world. And so loneliness looks dark. Yeah. And if you have the opportunity to be that light and salt in this world to somebody that you know, then reach out for it, do it, because there's no, and I love that you were sharing about you being that person, and then next time you'll be the person who might need it, or the opposite way. And I've seen that so many times. Yeah. People who have come to some of our family things who now reach out to others for and create that for others. And so God's so awesome. And he has never designed us to like walk in loneliness. He hasn't. He wanted us in community with him, in communion with him, but also with each other. And what, like that song, I sang it, I think, a couple of weeks ago for a moment in the podcast, like what the world needs now is love, sweet love.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly does. And during the holidays, combating loneliness, like the love of God is so important. And yes, like all this holiday expectations, which isn't necessarily in line with Jesus, a lot of the things surrounding it aren't necessarily in line with what Jesus actually came to do. But it is the culture that we live in and that we've grown up in. And then there is that level of expectation. And so helping people right where they're at and not judging people, right? I mean, that's a big thing too. So one of the ministries that I work with is for families who have young children, and these families can come a couple of times a month and get supplies like diapers and wipes and formula and clothing, etc. And one time one of the people on our board was in like Denny's or something having a breakfast, and the ladies having coffee at the table next to him were talking about the fact that their kids, they needed more resources and they were really struggling. And two of the ladies were telling them about Christ Cares for Kids. And what they said, it wasn't what they said that made me think, we're doing it right. They said, oh man, you can go there. They treat you so well there. Like it's really, really a good place. And they never mentioned like the amount of diapers. They never mentioned the resources. What they mentioned was the heart attitude and that they felt loved and respected. And so like places when we're in need, we can feel shame over that. And loneliness can also then look like a shame thing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, and that's such an important point is like that is such a common, those two feelings go together so often, a feeling of, well, I'm alone, what's wrong with me? Like I can't tell people I'm alone, and we put up this facade that we're not, and we're not willing to be open with people, and it's okay to admit you feel alone or you are alone in a particular time in your life. That's okay. Being alone sometimes is not a bad thing, and we've all been there. I think something that you said a little while ago is so important and so impactful, the idea of using that loneliness as a weapon for something good. And I think it's important for people to know that, with God, not only can you defeat those feelings and those thoughts from the devil, you can take that a step further. You can use those against them. And I think that that's so important and so powerful to know, like, I don't have to just beat loneliness. I can use it for good. And that is, again, I try and take that thought process into other areas of my life, and fear and anxiety and things like that. How do I use these things for good? Because there are ways. And there are so many stories in my life and your life of really, really bad situations that have had something come out of them, or something that we can utilize to create good. And I think that's such an important thing to note, is let's take it a step further. Let's not just combat and beat the feeling of loneliness. Like, let's use it and flip it on its head.
Yes. Not just like manage it, getting through the holidays, but actually, like flipping it. I love that. And that is one of the, because, the Bible talks about, God says that we can't imagine what he can do for us, right? Like when we pray, like our expectations are so small, honestly. Most times they're so small compared to like what God, like he says, like we can't even imagine more than we can ask for or imagine. Right? So your loneliness or whatever the thing is that you're battling, yes, it is not just about getting through it, managing it, kind of thing. But how can we flip it on its head? And that's a great challenge, I think, for everybody listening to this, watching this in this season. How can you flip this? And maybe it's the chaos of the season. Maybe you're called to create a quiet place for moms. Right? Like maybe your thing is that you're going to watch somebody's kids for 2 hours so she can go home and decorate her house or make some cookies, or, like find the way that you're going to flip this. Right? I mean, that's really good. I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, it's really important. And it makes the battle not easier, obviously, but I think it brings a whole new challenge to it and an opportunity and excitement, again, for me, where I look at it and I'm like, okay, like I'm not just going to win over this, like I'm going to use this for good. And I think, again, that's how God wants us to think, is how do I use this situation for good? And if we're able to have that mentality, can't do it all the time. It's very, very hard to keep that mentality through good and bad times. But if we can, as often as we can, think that way, I think it's so powerful for our lives. It's so powerful for our thought process, because it also brings us a little bit of hope. When we have those feelings of loneliness and we're sad and we're like, you can think about it and be like, okay, like what with this? And again, just that little bit of hope that can help drive you through that, I think is super impactful. And again, it's just about putting yourself out there. If you are lonely in this season, reach out to someone. If you're not lonely during the season, reach out to someone.
Yes. And even that whole concept of if you're lonely in the season, sometimes we have had these like major dinners and kind of thing, and then we've taken leftovers the next day or that evening and gone to some parks and to people who are homeless and needing, and like that becomes or take your Christmas dinner beforehand and go out, or go serve at St. Vincent de Paul or St. Mary's Food Bank or something like that. Like take that loneliness, and flip it, because you go and serve somewhere, you're going to like receive more, right, than you're giving. I mean, there's just no way that you can pour out, blessed are those, right, about giving, right, to them. And so, so I think that this whole idea of kind of like ramping it up that you brought, like don't just manage this. We can give you strategy tips on this, but how about flipping it on its head and making it into something that brings life to others? It's not just about, because honestly, like I know we think it, but life really isn't just about me, right?
Yep.
Yeah, our lives really are about God and others. And how can I like utilize this situation? So we have just a little over a minute left, sir. You got some last minute thoughts to people who are in this season now?
Yeah. Be strong and be courageous. I think is...
Whose Bible verse is that?
Philippians. It's one of the most important verses, in my life, but I think it's so important. Be strong and be courageous, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. You're not going to be alone. Put yourself out there. Reach out. Be a burden if you have to be a burden, if that's what it feels like, because it's not going to be to that other person. But, put yourself out there. Reach out. And again, I can't stress this enough. If you are blessed enough to be in a situation where you don't feel that alone this time of year, use that for good too, and reach out to others and reach out to people, invite people. Even if you think they're going to say no, do it anyway, because people really, really appreciate that. I think it's so important. Help each other out this time of year as much as you can. If you can impact one or two lives, during this season, it goes a really, really long way. So.
Sure does. Well, thank you so much for being on the journey with us on Are You the One? And if we don't hear from you beforehand, Merry Christmas. Ooh, yeah, that was good.
Thank you for listening to Are You the One today. We are grateful that you chose to get into the messiness of life with us. We pray that you have been encouraged and blessed and are ready to perhaps take that next step. Remember, you are not alone. Please visit our website, areyoutheoneshow.com, for resources and reinforcements to help you navigate your way to the heart of God and His great plans for your life. Join us again next week as together we dive into the deep end of life's issues on Are You the One?